Deep inside a concrete bunker at Fort Bragg in 1983, a Special Forces soldier stares intently at a goat. He is attempting to kill it using only the power of his mind. This wasn't a bizarre sideshow. It was a single battle in a secret psychic arms race. It was a multi-million-dollar conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union. But was any of it real? Or was it the most dangerous mass delusion of the Cold War? The origin of this shadow war began with a single terrifying piece of intelligence. In 1970, a report landed on desks at the Pentagon describing a new and unsettling Soviet capability. It alleged that the USSR was pouring millions of rubles into research on psychotronics. They were developing not just psychic spies, but psychic weapons. American intelligence agencies learned of Soviet laboratories dedicated to telekinesis, telepathy, and clairvoyance, treating the human mind as a programmable and weaponizable domain. Reports smuggled from behind the Iron Curtain spoke of individuals like Nina Kulagina, a Leningrad housewife, who could allegedly stop a frog's heart with her thoughts under laboratory conditions. Film reels showed her moving small objects on a tabletop without contact, her brow furrowed in concentration. To American military analysts, this wasn't magic. It was a potential strategic threat. They envisioned Soviet psychics disabling nuclear missile guidance systems or remotely viewing top-secret American installations. They even feared the remote inducing of heart attacks in political leaders from 1,000 miles away. The paranoia was palpable. The fear was that while America had mastered the atom, the Soviets were on the verge of mastering the mind itself. A psychic gap was forming, and the consequences of inaction were deemed catastrophic. Faced with this asymmetric threat, Washington responded. In 1972, the CIA quietly funded a pilot program at the Stanford Research Institute, or SRI. Its objective was to determine if a paranormal phenomenon, known as remote viewing, was real. The theory was simple, that certain individuals could perceive objects, places, and events at a distance, blocked by any conventional shielding. The initial results were unsettling. The program's star psychic was a New York artist named Ingo Swann. In a landmark experiment, Swann was asked to psychically describe a location he had never seen, a secret underground particle accelerator. Swann not only described the device with unnerving accuracy, he claimed to be able to affect its magnetic field. The scientists operating the machine, unaware an experiment was even taking place, later confirmed an inexplicable disruption at the exact time of Swann's attempt. For the CIA, this was proof of concept. The program expanded, shifting under the control of the Defense Intelligence Agency. It eventually became known by its final code name, Stargate. It was a formal, systematic effort to cultivate psychic spies. Recruits, often from military backgrounds, were subjected to rigorous protocols. They were given nothing but a set of geographical coordinates and a time. In a sealed, windowless room, the remote viewer would then attempt to describe what was at that target location. Their descriptions were documented, their sessions recorded, and their results analyzed. They were tasked with locating downed Soviet bombers and finding kidnapped American officials. They peered deep inside clandestine weapons facilities. For nearly 20 years, the United States government employed a cadre of psychic soldiers. The program's case files, now declassified, read like a science fiction novel. They are a litany of stunning hits and spectacular failures. The most famous success was credited to a former police commissioner named Pat Price. In 1974, the CIA was desperate to understand a mysterious facility at Semipalatinsk in Soviet Kazakhstan. Given only the map coordinates, Price began to describe a massive, multi-story gantry crane moving on rails. He sketched detailed diagrams of unique spherical objects being assembled. The CIA analysts were baffled. Their own satellite imagery showed nothing of the sort. Months later, new spy satellite photographs vindicated Price completely. He had accurately described the construction of a Soviet particle beam weapon before American technology could even see it. Yet for every astonishing hit, there was a profound miss that carried the weight of human life. In 1981, U.S. Army Brigadier General James Dozier was kidnapped in Italy by Red Brigade's terrorists. It was a massive international crisis. The full psychic squadron of Project Stargate was deployed to find him. Viewer after viewer attempted to locate the hidden safe house. They produced drawings, descriptions of rooms, and potential locations. None of it led to Dozier. He was eventually found 42 days later in Padua, rescued not by paranormal intelligence, but by conventional, painstaking police work. The psychics had been catastrophically wrong. The program was a paradox, a tool of seemingly immense power that was also completely, dangerously unreliable. For 2 decades, the project survived on the power of its most compelling anecdotes, but by the early 1990s, with the Soviet Union collapsing, the existential pressure that created Stargate was gone. The program could no longer justify its multi-million-dollar budget with strange stories and inconsistent results. In 1995, the CIA commissioned an independent definitive review from the American Institutes for Research. The question was simple. After 20 years of effort, did remote viewing provide any actionable, useful intelligence? The final report was unambiguous. It was the moment the illusion shattered. The researchers concluded that there was no evidence the program had ever produced intelligence that was used to guide a single successful operation. The apparent successes, like the Semipalatinsk crane, were dismissed as likely being the result of vague descriptions matching targets after the fact. The phenomenon itself, they determined, was not real. It was a statistical phantom, a product of flawed protocols and confirmation bias. In 1995, citing the damning report, the CIA officially terminated Project Stargate. The psychic arms race was over. The United States had spent millions developing a weapon that in the final analysis did not exist. But how could so many intelligent, high-ranking officials be so convinced? The answer lies in the profound psychological pressure of the Cold War. It was a conflict defined by paranoia, a fear of secret weapons and unseen enemies. In that environment of absolute uncertainty, the human mind craves any advantage, any sliver of hope. The compelling, highly detailed testimony of the viewers themselves created a powerful feedback loop. They believed in their abilities with absolute conviction. To this day, many of the program's key personnel insist the official conclusion was a whitewash, a cover-up designed to hide the program's true successes. They argue that the most effective psychic techniques and the most gifted viewers remain classified, their histories erased. The legacy of Stargate is twofold. The declassification of its files in 1995 did not end the story. Instead, it fueled a sprawling civilian subculture. Former Stargate personnel offer expensive courses, teaching the same remote viewing protocols developed by the CIA to anyone willing to pay. The program became a cornerstone of modern conspiracy lore, a supposed confirmation that the government knows the truth about paranormal phenomena. But the true lesson of this bizarre chapter of history is more sobering. It is a story about how fear can become a weapon in itself. It demonstrates how a nation can be so terrified of an enemy's imaginary weapon that it spends decades and fortunes attempting to build its own. The ultimate killer thought was not a psychic blast, but the paranoia that convinced a nation to fight a war against shadows.